Elementary music teacher friend, you love what you do, but you might feel unappreciated and, in fact, unseen some days. You may even feel like you're on a music teacher island and just want to connect with other music teachers who can relate to both your struggles and wins when it comes to teaching elementary music. I get you and understand completely the feelings you're having. That's why each and every week, the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast will provide you with solo and guest episodes that will help you realize you're not alone in your music teaching journey. Throughout each episode, my goal is for you to be able to walk away with actionable steps and ideas to help you feel like you're ready to take on the new week with whatever challenges may be thrown your way. Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Peresta, and I'm so glad you're here. Whether you're at home, in your car, in the shower, or wherever else you're listening, grab your cup of coffee or whatever other beverage is nearby and listen in to the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. Hey, you. Yes, you, music teacher friend. Did you know there are 4 workshops coming this summer just for you? I've listened and I've identified some of the greatest needs of music teachers in my online community and can't wait to dive into a few areas to help you move forward before you head into next school year. The workshops will be about classroom management and what it is and isn't, structuring your class time effectively and efficiently, organizing your lesson plan so you know what to pull from and when to do it, and a full 4-day workshop where we'll plan out your entire first month of school together. To find out more and to sign up for these workshops, simply head to thedomesticmusician.com/events, and you'll see the dates and the details there, or simply click on the link in the show notes to join. I'm so excited, and I can't wait for you to join me for 1, 2, 3, or all 4 of these workshops. Hey friends, welcome back to the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. Today's title is a little bit down, but I promise you're going to get so much good nuggets of wisdom from this episode and some encouragement. So the title of this episode is What to Do If You're Ready to Quit. Wah, wah, right? You're like, wow, that's really encouraging, Jessica. Thank you for this negative episode. But I wanted to record this episode because I have heard this comment being mentioned and seen it being mentioned in a lot of different places online. I've heard teachers in my own online community mentioning it about I may be ready to quit teaching. And so I want to kind of, in this episode, help you process through your thoughts, really sit down and think about where these thoughts and feelings are coming from to identify if they're temporary or if they are something that is really going to, take place and transpire for you, or if it's something that, it just some discussions that need to happen and some sitting down and really brain dumping on a piece of paper. So we're going to go through a lot of things in this episode to help you process through maybe why you are having these feelings, these thoughts, or have said this sentence out loud that I'm ready to quit teaching. So the first thing I want to talk about is identifying where these thoughts are coming from. So maybe you are burnt out. Think about this school year. It has been very stressful, to say the least. It has been a year that feels like 10 years in one. Teaching during a pandemic is no joke. So you probably are feeling burnt out. As you're listening to this episode, this is coming out in May. So it is the end of the school year. Some of you listening to this, your school year ends in May, and some of you, it ends in June. And I know some of my friends joining me from other countries that are outside of the US, your school years go from January through December. So wherever you find yourself at in the school year, you may be feeling that burnout big time, especially towards the end of the school year. You're exhausted. Your students are exhausted. Parents are exhausted. Every single person who works in your school building is exhausted. It is an exhausting school year for anyone, but especially this school year. It has been more exhausting than normal. So maybe you're having these thoughts of, I'm ready to quit because you're just kind of feeling burnt out and exhausted. If that's the case, I do want to tell you that is normal. The end of the school year, if you're a first year teacher and you're feeling this exhaustion, you're like, is this how I should be feeling? Yes, it is. Unfortunately, it just is. It's the end of the school year craziness. You're tired, you're worn out, you're worn down, you're just done, your kids are done. So maybe you're feeling these feelings of being ready to quit just because you're feeling burnout and exhausted. If that's the case, I think it's just maybe time to take a break. It's time to just kind of find something to refresh yourself. Go back and listen to some of my episodes about self-care. There was a newish one that was just done with Beth Duhan. She had amazing advice around that. I also know Michelle Rose on my podcast has talked about self-care, the difference between self-care and self-soothing. So go back and listen to those episodes, and maybe it's just time for you to take a little break, mentally check out after the school year is done, of course, or whatever the next weekend you have coming up, or pencil in some time at the end of the school day where you take some nights off and don't bring any schoolwork home. Don't think about school. Just really unwind and really rest. If you're feeling burnt out right now, maybe it's not time to quit the teaching profession altogether. Maybe it is just time to take a break and unwind and figure out some fun and some restful days to have this summer. Other thoughts you might be experiencing, is it because you've lost your passion for teaching? There are going to be days, weeks, months. I feel like I'm singing the Friends song right now. You know what I'm talking about? Days, your months, or even your years. I'll be there for you. Anyways, I'm a huge Friends fan. Sorry, that was a really big tangent, but it made me feel like I was singing that song. But maybe you've lost your passion for teaching. Maybe it has been outside circumstances that have caused you to lose your passion for teaching, whether that is someone who has, maybe there's been maybe not just someone, maybe there's been some ones who have said things in your ear this year, made you feel a certain way, or made you feel like your job is not important or not valued, or that, oh, it's just music class, or your students not showing up to your online virtual teaching. You're just feeling a little defeated and you've kind of lost your passion, where you're like, why am I creating all these lessons and spending so much time really making my lesson plans creative and exciting, and I'm excited to show up and teach music, but it doesn't feel like it's being reciprocated by maybe not even your students, but by parents or other teachers, or maybe it is your students who you feel like you've tried everything to reach them and it's just not going well for you for whatever reason. All these things can definitely make you feel like you're losing your passion for teaching. But maybe it is not about giving up. Maybe it is about, okay, identifying, and maybe you've joined me before. I've had challenges I've done in the past in the wintertime, reflecting, renewing challenge. And what we've talked about in there is reflecting on, and this is what I want you to do right now, reflect on what went well this school year. When the school year ends, I want you to think about what went well and what did I do that didn't go so well? Maybe you can't sit down and think of every single lesson plan for every grade level, but think about those particular lessons or ways you presented your lesson ideas. What did not connect with your students? Or what was it, like I said, maybe something completely out of your control where you're like, listen, I wasn't even in my classroom all school year. All I did is teach virtually. And I don't know who sitting at home watched any of the lessons I prepared. Maybe that's what's caused you to lose your passion. So it's maybe just sitting down and thinking about those things, thinking through that. Thinking through, was that why I've lost my passion? Because things were just so out of my control this year. I felt like I was just not even teaching music. It was tough. I don't know what kids are watching the lessons I spent hours creating. So I want to encourage you that your students, even if you don't see them participating at home, they are. Maybe not every single one of them, but I am a parent and I can tell you that kiddos are excited to learn at home. They're excited to participate, especially when it comes to music. I don't feel like it's just because I'm a music person, but my kids love anything their music teachers have done with them. They are so excited to show me and to sing the songs and do the activities and all this different stuff. They are doing it at home. So if that's what's caused you to lose your passion, I want you to move past that, because a part of reflecting is not just thinking about the past, but thinking about moving forward. Going into next school year, maybe you don't even know what your teaching situation is going to look like yet. You don't know if there's going to still be masks. You don't know if you're going to be back in person full time or still teaching virtually or hybrid or whatever. But I want you to really kind of shift your mindset and think like, okay, I have still been teaching music, and maybe next year I don't know fully what it's going to look like yet, but I'm going to figure out what has caused the burnout, what has caused me to lose my passion so I can move forward. Okay. I could have like a whole 10 hours of talking about this, but I want to move forward. And if you ever have any questions or want to chat about it, please just reach out to me. Find me on Instagram, send me a direct message at Jessica Peresta. I almost couldn't spell my own last name or say my own last name, and let's chat, okay? So, do you want something else for work? Maybe you've had thoughts about, I'm ready to quit because I just don't really enjoy teaching anymore. Maybe you thought teaching would be a certain way and it has not been what you thought it would be. And maybe you've been thinking about transitioning out of the classroom to do something else for work. If that's the case, like I said, don't make any sudden decisions and just I'm quitting. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I completely regret that. And we're going to talk about later on what to do if you have those feelings. But maybe you want to do something else for work. Maybe you've really had a heart change and you've had something else you've really had a passion for. If that's the case, really think through that. Really, really think through it, because that's a personal decision. And there's nothing wrong with transitioning out of teaching if you feel like you are passionate about doing something else. So another thought you may be having is maybe you're a new parent, or maybe mamas, you're listening and you're pregnant and you're kind of like, I'm kind of going through this internal battle of wanting to be a stay-at-home mom or dad. And I don't know if I'm supposed to. I don't know if I'm going to miss teaching, or if I'm going to lose myself in the process. If I became a stay-at-home mom, if I'm going to miss being in the classroom. That's, once again, it goes back to personal decisions. Okay. I, as a mom, I've done it all. I've been a work inside the classroom mom, been work outside the home mom. I've been a stay-at-home mom, and now I'm a work from home mom. And I can tell you all three are equally hard and rewarding at the same time. But it is definitely a personal decision for you. Just kind of talking about it with your family, your spouse, your partner, whoever, and deciding that for yourself, but also knowing you can always go back to teaching. Okay. That is something I feel like people don't talk about. You feel like, oh, I got a teaching degree, I have to be in the classroom for the rest of my life without ever taking a break. No, it's not true. There are a lot of states, which I can't speak for all states because I honestly don't know. And so I never want to say anything I'm not sure about, but you get a year. A lot of times you can say, I'm requesting off a year, where you're not paid for that year, but they basically hold your position for you, get a long-term sub for a year, and you can return. So look into that. If that's the case, maybe you just take a year off and then you go back after a year. So look into that, and wherever you live, talk about it with your administrator. Maybe you're not ready to do that. Just really think about that. Maybe like me, was my story, is you're moving to a new state. And so I wasn't ready to quit completely. We moved from Oklahoma to Arkansas, and my actual school was closing down. The district I worked in was consolidating a lot of the different elementary schools and just restructuring a lot in our district. And I knew there was a really good chance we would be moving. My husband had already been driving back and forth interviewing in Arkansas. And I was going to follow my principal to her new school. And I said, I don't want to quit in the middle of the school year in case we move. And I was pregnant with our second son at that point. And I just made the decision, I'm going to, I guess, fall into being a stay-at-home mom for the next few months. And that's kind of exactly how the story went. I stayed at home, very pregnant, had a 2-year-old, and then we ended up moving literally 3 months later. I knew I had made the right decision because then I didn't have to quit a school, just teach for 3 months and then quit. And so I moved to Arkansas, got recertified, was planning to go back into teaching here. And then shortly after we got pregnant with our third son, by we, I mean me, I was the pregnant one. And I decided, long story short, started my own online business, and here we sit 5 years later. So my story kind of took a lot of twists and turns. But with that said, maybe you are knowing you're going to be moving, maybe not even to a new state, but a new country or new wherever. And you're like, listen, I don't know if I want to go back into teaching because I will, like my story, would have to quit a couple months later. That's okay. You can totally transfer your teaching certificate. You can keep up your professional development hours. And like I said earlier, you can always go back into teaching. It's never a finish. I'm not saying I'm never going back into the classroom. Right now, I'm totally loving running my own online business where I'm able to help music educators like you and run this podcast and run my business and be able to have time for my children. But with all that said, I still totally have a passion for teaching, and I totally can see myself going back into the classroom when and if, I don't know. But like I said, it's a decision that you make on your own. Don't ever let anybody make you feel guilty about it. And you know your life and your situation better than anyone. So maybe you're moving and you don't want to quit like after a couple months and you know that there's a good chance you're moving soon. Then take time off if you need to. And then you can get a new teaching position whenever that is. And like my story too, right out of college, I got a teaching position in the middle of the school year. So don't think, if you move to a new state and you're like, oh, I'd have to wait a whole nother year for the fall to come to get a new teaching position. No way. There are a lot of districts that are hiring teachers in the middle of the school year. I've even known of teaching positions opening up in random months because teachers will quit sometimes or need to leave for like medical reasons in other months of the school year. So there's been teaching positions opening up in like October or randomly in March. So you never know when those positions will open up, of course. And as a music teacher, those positions are very rare because, you know, there's not as many music teachers in your district as there are for every other subject area, but it does happen. So don't think, oh, I'm going to have to wait a year. And if so, you can totally go into substitute teaching or other things until there's a job that opens up. What other thoughts you may be having is maybe teaching music is not what you thought it would be like. Maybe you got into it, you were so excited, you got your music education degree, maybe you're alternatively certified or whatever it might look like for you, and it's just not what you thought it would be. First of all, if you're a first-year teacher, give it time, okay? I don't know how else to say it besides saying that. Give it time, because I promise you, especially if you've gone through your first year of teaching during COVID, it will get better. It will get better. You will learn about yourself. I have conversations with music teachers about this all the time. All the time. We just did my Harmony membership. We do a member call every month, and we had our member call a couple weeks ago. We had this exact conversation. Someone inside my Harmony membership, he's a third-year teacher now, and he just said he said, this is the year that I felt like more confident and fell into my position better, and I've got to know my students better, and it's not as crazy. I'm not trying to figure out all the ropes. And I said, yes, I need more of you to hear that. And I have a whole episode about the third year of teaching is magic. And I don't think that's what I called it, but something like that. But basically every year it gets easier. It gets better. You feel more confident. You know your students better. Lesson planning becomes easier. You knowing your teaching style. So if it's about you not thinking this is what teaching music would be like, I promise it gets better. If you're listening to this right now and you've been teaching 20 years and you're just like, this is still not what I thought teaching music would be like, because education changes every year. Every year there's new requirements, there's new curriculum, there's new expectations put on you. And so it is changing. But not only that, the kids are changing. Every generation of students, they're just listening to different kinds of music and liking different stuff. And technology is more prominent now and all those things. And so it's going to be different every year. And you even if you've been teaching 20 years, you may feel like a first year teacher all over again, almost every 3 years, because of all the different stuff kind of going into that, right? So identify, is it because it's not what I thought teaching music would be like, or is it just because education is constantly changing? I'm just giving you some ideas to think through here so you can identify, are you ready to quit altogether, or is there just some factors playing into your thoughts that are making you feel a certain way? Alrighty? So let's talk about what to do with these thoughts. I've just given you so many different thoughts to think through, and maybe you can add to that list on your own. You have other thoughts that you're kind of thinking through about maybe why you might be ready to walk out of the classroom. But let's talk about what to do with these thoughts. Now you've had them, but you're like, all right, well, I've been thinking these, but what do I do? The first thing is, and I've kind of mentioned this already, but think about, is it just a passing thought? Is it because you've had a rough, frustrating day? Or have you been feeling a certain way for a while? That will really help you with what to do moving forward. If it's a rough day or week, those are going to come. It doesn't mean it's time for you to, completely quit teaching altogether, but it's just those rough days and weeks are going to come. All right. Rainy day, full moon, end of the school year, assemblies, all those things, plus many other things I didn't just mention, will play into there being crazy days at school. It's just going to happen. If you've been feeling that way for a while about you having these thoughts about quitting, go back to all the things I just mentioned before that, And then think about, all right, what can I do moving forward, and kind of start making a plan. If you feel like you're like 99% leaning towards leaving, then kind of start making a plan for what you need to do in order to do that. What you could do when you leave the teaching career, whatever that might look like for you. But what I also want you to do is talk about it with a music teacher friend. Talk about your feelings. I know for me personally, if I internalize things, I start feeling more stressed out and overwhelmed. It's when I talk to others, whether it's a music teacher colleague, a friend, my spouse. My husband's great about listening, doesn't always have the best advice or know what to say, but he is a good sounding board. Someone else who will be a good sounding board for you. You know who that person is in your life, and maybe you don't have that person in your life, like in person, but maybe there's someone in online where I have met so many amazing friends. A lot of you listening to this podcast who I completely appreciate your support. You are amazing. I consider you friends, even if we haven't met in person. I've connected with so many amazing educators on Instagram, in my Facebook group and other Facebook groups. Now I'm on Clubhouse. I've connected with so many amazing human beings on there. You guys, Twitter community, there are so many amazing places online where you will connect and kind of find different people that will be good sounding boards for you to talk about your feelings with. And maybe you're not even wanting to go and talk about your feelings, but you see other people who are voicing their opinions or who have the same feelings. Maybe they're posting or writing about that you have, and you're like, oh, wow, that person just gets me. And a lot of times what I like to do, here's a little snippet for you that you can take and run with. I like to see if someone is having maybe similar thoughts or opinions about something that, or maybe feelings that I'm having. And I kind of look at the comments, like in a Facebook group. What are other people saying? What advice are they giving to this person? And a lot of times just reading that without even knowing who that person is, it helps me so much. So go in the search bar, especially in Facebook groups, and you can just type in thoughts you're having, like even type in like quitting teaching, and look at all the different posts that someone has, or not someone's have put, and what advice has other people given them that will really help you to move forward. So reading posts, talking about it with others, journal, jot down your thoughts in a journal, or just brain dump your ideas maybe on a Google Doc about feelings you're having. Come and join my Facebook group as well. I have a free online Facebook group called the Elementary Music Teacher Community. You can meet other music teachers in there who just get you. A lot of them have joined the Facebook group because they're listeners of this podcast, and you can find the link to join that in the show notes as well. So other things to do with these thoughts. Think about, I've already said this, but think about this school year, how hard it's been. Okay. So process, are you feeling like you're ready to quit teaching because of the COVID school year? Because of teaching during a pandemic, it's not normal. I don't have all the advice. I'm not a scientist. I don't know, but I know things will get better eventually. It will start feeling a little bit more normal. Does anything ever feel normal? But you know what I mean. It'll start feeling like you're able to start teaching music the way you used to again. You're going to fall into a rhythm again. It's going to start feeling like you're able to teach your students the way you want to, the way you've planned to. So if it's because of COVID, really think through, is it because of that? Is this year what burnt you out? And think about the fact that it's not going to be this way forever. It will, maybe this coming school year, next school year is not going to be completely back to 100% the way it used to be, but it might be a little bit better. The next school year might be a little bit better. So keep that in mind if that's what's causing you to have feelings like you're ready to quit. And then I want to talk to my newer teachers. Maybe this is your first, second, or third year of teaching, and maybe it's harder than you thought it would be. Maybe you haven't really had a mentor. Maybe you're figuring it out as you go. Maybe you haven't had a lot of support, and you know that each year does get better. You know that in your head, but you're also like, but gosh, this year has been crazy. I can relate to you. And you guys, I've shared my story before, but new teachers, like I said, I started teaching in the middle of the school year at a school that hadn't had music for 7 years. My mentor teacher, who is amazing, and she may be listening to this podcast, she is amazing, but she taught 3rd grade. And so she didn't know a lot about music. So it was hard to pick her brain when it came to like music stuff, but she was great about helping me with like other things when it came to just general teaching. So maybe you find yourself kind of in that place of, I was ready to quit. I had so many thoughts about, I'm ready to quit. This is not for me. I'm ready to run out the door. Nobody told me I would have no resources. Nobody told me I wouldn't have a mentor who knew anything about music. Nobody told me I wouldn't be able to connect with other music teachers, and I have no idea what I'm doing. But I'm so glad I stuck it out. I'm so glad I stuck it out because over time, I got to know my students. I formed relationships with them. I figured out how to make it work in my classroom. I started going to the right trainings. I started getting the right mentorship and support. I met teachers who were able to help me. So I don't want you to feel like if you're feeling stuck and you have no support or mentorship, new teachers, listen to me. I promise it gets better. You will be able to connect with a mentor. You will find teachers to connect with. You are going to figure out how to make it work for you. This is exactly, by the way, why I wrote my book, Make a Note, What You Really Need to Know About Teaching Elementary Music, because I wanted to share my story, because I know what it's like to go into teaching and of all these other things playing into it that nobody ever told you about. It's tough. So if you want to check out my book, by the way, just thedomesticmusician.com/book, and you'll be able to see it there, or it'll be in the show notes. And new teachers, I also have a free resource that I haven't mentioned on this podcast in a while, but it's called 20 Things to Know Before Teaching Music at an Elementary School. And you can go to subscribe.thedomesticmusician.com/elementary music cheat sheet, or that'll be in the show notes as well. So new music teachers, listen to me. It does get better. I know it's tough right now, but keep going. Don't give up, because I promise it gets better. And if not, go back to the beginning of this episode where we talk about what to do if it doesn't get better, because you do not need to stay stuck. Okay, so what else can you do with these thoughts? Well, maybe it is time to maybe transition to a new school or maybe a new district, or we've already talked about moving to a new state. But maybe you've been at a particular school for a while and you're just like, something's not clicking. Maybe it's like a new administrator and you don't feel like you're jiving with them, and you feel like you've tried. They're not getting you. You're not getting them. Maybe there's a new position that's opened up in your district and you're like, maybe I'll shoot for that. Maybe you end up in meeting with this administrator and you're like, oh my gosh, this is already way easier just from having one conversation with them than it was at the past 3 years at my other school, or whatever, however many years it's been. So maybe just think about that. Maybe it's just time to like try out a new school or a new district, and maybe that might be the missing piece that falls into place for you. So think about those things. So what do you do if you decide to stay? So get support. We've talked about that, different ways to get support, and it will look different for everyone depending on what you need, how you need support throughout the school year. And I want you to remember your why. Why, and I've talked about this on this podcast so many times, when you could do anything else in the whole entire world, did you decide to go into teaching music? And I love hearing these stories because it's different for every single teacher. Some of you did go the traditional route of getting a music education degree. You just kind of knew right away that you wanted to teach music. For me, it wasn't that way. I started college as a piano performance major. Some of you know that, some of you do not. I thought I was going to be this classically trained pianist who traveled the world and performed on stages. Could I have gone that route? Yes, 100%. But I kind of had a heart shift. In the middle of my sophomore year of college, I kind of was like, wait a minute. I had been working with kids in my community. I had kind of been volunteering and helping out in different areas around town. And I already taught piano lessons to kids pretty much almost full time in college. I kept taking on more and more students at this studio. I loved working with kids. I accompanied different children's choirs around town as a pianist, and I just kind of would watch these choirs and be like, oh my gosh, how fun. Look at these kids creating music. And it was like, I kind of had this shift in my brain that went, what are you doing, woman? Like, you would love teaching music to kids. Why are you not like going and getting a degree for that? And it just all of a sudden just had a heart shift, talked to one of my advisors in college and said, I think I'm supposed to switch my degree to music education. They were like, okay, how? So I was like, what do I need to do to make that work? And that's kind of how that happened. So I finished my degree in 4.5 years because I still kind of I did all of the piano performance along with all the music education, and I literally was one class short of having a double major. The only reason I didn't finish is because the semester I did my student teaching, there was one class I needed for piano performance, and I thought, I'm not going to stick around it. And I just never finished that one class. So whatever, it is what it is. All that to say, you know why you got into music education. Maybe it's a story kind of like mine where you love music, you love working with kids, and just kind of merged. Those two just kind of merged and you just couldn't see yourself doing anything else. I kind of could see myself doing other professions. I always thought I could maybe be a counselor. I love psychology and counseling. There were some other things. I love organization. I could see myself honestly running a business, ironically, hello. But music education is just kind of the one I knew I needed to do. So what is your why? Is it because you love working with students? Is it because you've always had a heart for kids? Is it because you just couldn't see yourself doing anything else? What's your story? How did you get into being an elementary music teacher? Maybe you thought you were going to teach choir or band. Maybe you did teach choir or band, but all of a sudden you shifted to elementary music. And why though? Maybe you got alternatively certified. Maybe you were asked to teach music. Maybe you're at a private school and they knew you played piano or sang and they said, hey, we need a music teacher. And you kind of fell into it like that. Your story is unique to you. So I want you though, because maybe it's been a while, I want you to go back and think about your why. Why did you get into teaching elementary music? Not thinking about it being hard. Maybe you're not knowing what you're doing right now. Maybe it's like tough. Maybe you're like trying to figure out the ropes and you're not quite sure if this is what you're supposed to be doing with your life. But all I want you to do right now, if you decide to stay, is think about your why. Those hard days, think about your why. The days you feel like quitting, think about your why. The days you have a student say something to you that gets under your skin, think about your why. The day someone acts like music teaching is just about covering planning period, think about your why. Okay? You don't even need to tell anyone else, or you can tell someone else, but I want you to remember your why. If you decide to stay, also know that you got into teaching music for a reason. We already just talked about that, right? Could have done anything else with your life, but know that you got into this for a reason. Maybe it's been so many years since you've thought back about what that reason was, but you got into it for a reason. I want you to make a plan for what you're going to do on those hard days. Those days, those days I'm talking about, those days that are so hard, where it feels like you're not making any traction and you just kind of are in your car crying on your way home, or you shut down your laptop after a day of virtual teaching and you're just like staring at the wall because it was so hard. I want you to make a plan. What are you going to do on those hard days? Maybe that is what you need to do, is just sit there for a minute and process. Just sit in the quiet and don't think about anything. Maybe your drive home, if you are driving home from school, you're not even listening to a podcast, even though ironically I'm recording a podcast. Maybe you're just sitting in quiet, processing, praying, thinking about. And then you get home and you, on those hard days, you tell yourself, on those hard days, I know they're going to come. I am not going to think about school. Maybe I have so much planning to do, so much preparing for the next day, or maybe you have a program coming up or whatever it might be, or you need to insert grades and you say, no, those hard days, I do that. On those hard days I have of work, I don't do anything at night. I may have penciled in to create, plan, record, whatever. No, I take a break. I don't know what that may be like for you, what it looks like for you, who you need to inform about that, but you need to just take a break on those hard days. And I promise you, it'll mentally prepare you to go back into school the next day. If you decide to stay, remember that everyone has hard days in their jobs, not just teachers, and it's normal. Everyone, no matter what career they're in, has hard days. They have thoughts of quitting. They have thoughts of throwing in the towel, forgetting this, and just like, I'm done with this. I'm over it. It's normal in whatever career people find themselves in to have hard days. It's just not talked about very much. Talking about going into teaching is just going to be sunshine and rainbows. And that's not always the case. There's going to be storms. There's going to be thunderbolts and lightning. Actually, there's no thunderbolts. Thunder and lightning bolts. There we go. It's not always going to be perfect. And so if you decide to stay, I want you to also think about this summer. Professional development opportunities. I'm so excited to see that there's like going to be Orff and Kodály and other trainings coming up in person again. Opportunities for teachers to get in-person professional development. There's so many amazing online professional developments. I'm so excited to be presenting at different online conferences this summer. So maybe you're more of an in-person professional development type of person. Maybe you want online, maybe you want a little bit of both, but just kind of look around, start asking what different opportunities are out there to get the support that you need. What do you need in order to help spur you forward into next school year? Go to thedomesticmusician.com/events. And at the very bottom of that page, you'll see the 3 conferences I'm presenting at this summer, and you can sign up to participate in those. But I also have some events that I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, some workshops, I should say, that are coming up this summer. There are 4 different workshops coming up this summer. You heard me mention at the beginning of this episode, and click on the link in the show notes, or like I said, thedomesticmusician.com/events to sign up for one or all of them. And I would love to see you there. I created these because I know the overwhelm is there. I know that I want to quit is there. I know that I love teaching, but something's got to give. And so I want to provide ways for you to come and get support and encouragement to spur you forward as you move into next school year. So I want to end this episode about talking about what if you do get to the decision after listening to this entire episode, you've processed through your thoughts, you've really thought about it, you've, talked to others and all those things, but you still decide to quit. I want to just leave you with a couple of thoughts. There is no shame in that. When I decided to leave the classroom, when I decided to not go back before we moved to a new state, I felt weird. I felt like, this is odd. I was supposed to be in the classroom for 30 years. I have a music education degree. I'm supposed to be teaching right now, and I'm not. Like, we moved to a new state. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know anybody here. I didn't go into the classroom again, and then it just felt weird. There is no shame in you quitting, and I want you to know it's a personal decision. It's your decision. It's your life. And you don't have to justify your decisions or your life to anyone else. So if you just make the decision to quit, you're going to have people giving you feedback and in your ears like, are you sure this is right? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? But you know yourself better than anyone. Okay. I want you to take the time to really think it through, though. Like I said, don't make any rash decisions. This episode is not me about telling every music teacher who listens this, because this whole podcast is to support you in your elementary music teaching journey. So we need elementary music teachers. Okay. So I do not want you to quit. We need quality educators, music educators in the profession. But with that said, if you make the decision to quit for whatever reason, know that there's no shame in it. It's a personal decision. It doesn't mean you can't ever go back into teaching. It does not mean that. And it's your choice and no one else's. So I want you to remember those things. But with that said, this podcast is all about loving on you, supporting you, encouraging you, and you're going to find some episodes coming out this summer with some actionable shorter episodes that are kind of quick tip episodes to help you with different subjects around elementary music to help spur you forward into next school year. Hang in there, music teacher friend. I know it's been a doozy of a school year, to put it lightly, and that you are just probably feeling the mental exhaustion and the overwhelm. So take this episode, process through the things I've said, sign up for those workshops this summer. I would love to see you there. I'm so excited to continue supporting you any way I can. And I will come back and talk to you soon. Well, hey there. Thank you so much for listening into the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. There is an exclusive Facebook group just for listeners of this podcast and any elementary music teacher called the Elementary Music Teacher Community Facebook group. Come on over and join us there, where we have conversations around the podcast episodes and encourage each other each and every week. And also head to my website, thedomesticmusician.com. I have some free resources there that you can download to help you gain traction in your classroom today, as well as the blog and the membership site and all kinds of other goodies to help you keep going in your music teaching journey. I cannot wait to keep connecting with you and encouraging you and spurring you on in your journey of teaching elementary music. Hang in there, have an amazing week, and I will see you soon.